WQEE 99.1 FM The Key, home of Southern sports and talk. Newman, Sharpsburg, Franklin.
Are you looking for guidance and direction? Stop on by the House of Light Tuesdays from 12 to 3 and have tea and tarot with Christy. The House of Light is located at 29 Jackson Street in Newnan, Georgia. Call 470-414-6711 for more information.
When you hear music, do the lyrics speak to you on a deeper level? I'm Bruce Thornton. Join me and Donna Wood every Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. on WQEE 99.1 FM The Key for our show Lyrical Wisdom. Every week we will dive into the lyrics of songs and uncover hidden messages that we hope will leave you feeling inspired and enlightened. We know that our ideas may not always line up with yours, so this show will be an open discussion. Email us with ideas for songs at lyricalwisdomshow@gmail.com. That's lyricalwisdomshow@gmail.com. Let's share some wisdom together.
The House of Light brings clarity to your soul, offering a safe space for healing through our compassionate practitioners, services, classes, and wisdom, plus the tools to support you in our retail space.
The views and opinions of this show and program are not the views and opinions of this station, its management, or its clientele. It's now time for the House of Light presents The Wisdom Cafe, each and every week at this time on 99.1 FM WQEE. Here's this week's special.
Hello, my name is April Novoa, and I'm here today to talk to you about human design. I'm a human design specialist, a Gene Keys guide, and an author. So, what is human design? I'm going to get into that more, but I like to call it a user manual for your life, or the science of human differentiation. That is what human design is fundamentally, if we're looking at it very generally. So real quick, I'd like to mention its origins. It was discovered by a man by the name of Ra Uru Hu, who has since transitioned or passed away. And that was back in 1987. And for a long time, it was just only a select few people that really knew about human design. Very few people experimented with it. In human design, we don't call it a belief system. We call it an experiment. So there weren't a lot of people experimenting with it, but in the last 10 or so years it has gained popularity. And in this last year, I believe it was the Washington Post that came out and said that it has now surpassed Enneagram as far as personality profiling tools. So human design is a synthesis of ancient and modern sciences, and it's proven to be a valuable tool for human understanding. If you go to geneticmatrix.com, you can put in your information and actually pull up your, what we would call a body graph. And it might look a little overwhelming to you because there's a lot of moving parts. But the key components are 26 activations from the I Ching, 13 planetary imprints, 9 centers, what we call centers, or you could look at them as chakras if you'd like, 36 channels, which are basically energies that are consistent, things about you that are consistently you. There's a total of 64 gates or hexagrams. For those of you that know about the I Ching, that's pretty basic. And 6 lines, which gives further nuance to those gifts and attributes that you might have. And of course 3 levels of substructure, which we won't be going into this in this short little conversation here, but that's the components, just so you know. Again, you can go to geneticmatrix.com, put your information in, date of birth, time of birth, location of birth, and you can get your free body graph. Again, that's geneticmatrix.com. So the celestial bodies used in human design are the Sun, Earth, Moon, North Node, South Node, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, just like in astrology. But when you're looking at your chart, once you've got it, the things that are in black are conscious attributes, things you would know to be true about yourself. And the things in red are what we would call subconscious or unconscious. Others might see these things in you, but you might not necessarily be aware of them. And so each of those activations, those black or red lines, are attributes, characteristics that you might have, even shadow elements. And it's extremely fascinating. I'm not going to go too much into that today. That's a conversation for another time, but just to kind of give you a little reference if you pull up your chart. So I want to talk about the point of human design, and that is deconditioning. So from the time that you're a little kid, you are given information about who you are. And you tend to, over time, behave how you're expected. You become conditioned. You become, homogenized. We start to do as everyone else does. And it's well-meaning. Our parents and our educators want us to conform to a certain standard. But in doing so, we become conditioned, and we become essentially not ourselves. And, you can do this for a long time, but at some point, you look in the mirror and you're like, who am I, right? You don't know yourself. You know the version of yourself that the world has told you to be. So the point of human design is to become acquainted with who you are. It is to know thyself. And we call this deconditioning in human design. Another way to I guess categorize conditioning is, we would call that the not self in human design. So when someone is behaving contrary to who they really are, they are in the not self. And so if you hear that term thrown around in human design, you will understand that they are the conditioned self as opposed to the self. The not self is that conditioning. So I want to talk about the 5 aura types, and this is about as general as it gets. So your aura communicates to the world your energy, okay? And there are 5 in human design: the generator and the manifester. Don't let that word seem too woo-woo. It simply means initiator. The projector, the manifesting generator, and the reflector. So let's go over that again. The generator, the manifester, the projector, the manifesting generator, and the reflector. Human beings tend to fall into one of these 5 types. There's a lot more nuance to human design, but this is kind of, stating that generally. So you are probably one of those types. So if you're looking at your chart, you've gone to geneticmatrix.com, it's going to say type or aura type, and you will see in that category, or up in the very top, that it will give you your type. So let's start with the largest group, the generator. They comprise about 36% of the population, and their aura is open and inclusive. Their strengths are that they're energetic, okay? They tend to be masters of their work. They really want to know how to do things well. They have sustainable energy, so they can go, 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 a little bit like the Energizer Bunny, and they're self-aware. So, quick note, they are all these things when they are correct, when they are making decisions that are correct for them. If they are not aligned correctly and doing things that are correct for their aura type, they can often feel frustrated, they can feel stuck, sometimes they can just quit, and they just feel like they just can't make it happen. So when they're aligned correctly, they're energetic, masters of their work, have sustainable energy, and are self-aware. When they are not, they are frustrated. We call this the not self theme, frustration. And oftentimes they'll just quit because of that frustration, and they feel like they just can't make it happen. And again, that stuck feeling. So you might be a generator. If you feel some of these things, you may not. You may be another type. But this is the generator, and it tends to be their themes when aligned or misaligned in their lives. A few well-known famous generators would be someone like Oprah Winfrey, Robert Downey Jr., or Beethoven. Those are a few well-known generators. And if you really look at these individuals closely, you will see some of these characteristics. They are definitely driven people, very energetic. They're very open. They have an open aura, kind of envelops you. Of course, I don't know that so much about Beethoven because, that's a little past all of our times. But I do find it interesting to look at what a master he was in terms of, his music and what he contributed to the world. And aligned generators are contributors to the world and really master their craft. They have a stair-step learning process, and so they like to do things in order, one step at a time. If you're looking at the generator's chart, and if you've pulled up your chart, you may be looking at it. We haven't really gone over what motors are, but you might have a defined throat chakra center, but there's no motor connected to it. And the sacral, which is the red square towards the bottom, is always defined in a generator's chart. So if you're a generator, how do you make correct decisions? In human design, we call that strategy and authority. So strategy for the generator is to wait to respond and know thyself. So for a generator, it's important that they get to know themselves. And the waiting component is really huge, because if they try to force things or make things happen, they often end up hitting a brick wall and becoming very frustrated. So the strategy, wait to respond. The authority, which is how we know what's true for us, for the generator can either be what we call sacral or solar plexus, emotional authority. And what this means, so if we're looking at sacral, it's all about a gut knowing, and it comes out in a sound. It's a uh-huh, an uh-uh, and a hmm. And that's how the generator knows what's correct for them. When they answer questions, either questions that they come up with for themselves or someone else, and if they answer with that sacral sound found deep in the sacral chakra, they can know what's correct for them. Or they can have solar plexus, what we call emotional authority, which means that they need to wait until they have some neutrality in terms of how they're feeling before they will know what's correct for them and have clarity. So that is just very briefly the strategy and authority, possible strategy and authority for a generator. Next up is the manifester. And, a lot of times people want to be a manifester or think, I'm a manifester. We're all manifestors. We all can manifest things. I think a better word for this type would be initiator, because these people can make things happen, and they don't have the time component that the other types have. They comprise just 8% of the population. Some other specialists have said this is climbing up to 9 or 10%, but they have a closed and repelling aura. So their aura is not open, and it pushes away what is not for them. Their strengths are that they're very energetic and driven. They can be very powerful and influential. They can be very successful. They tend to be very impulsive. And because of the closed aura, they're very difficult to read, so they can be kind of mysterious. When they're not in alignment, they can become angry and irritable. Anger is the not-self theme of the manifestor. They're not always a team player. They tend to kind of want to work alone or do their own thing. They can be impatient and secretive. And if they're aligned, again, they're energetic, driven, powerful, influential, successful, but impulsive and mysterious. When not aligned, again, angry, irritable, can be a little bit impatient and secretive. So that is the manifestor. A few well-known manifestors would be Jack Nicholson, Susan Sarandon, and Frida Kahlo. If you're looking at a manifestor's chart, they have a defined throat center, and they have some sort of what we would call motor, which again I'm not going to go over in this conversation too much. It gets a little bit more technical, but they have a motor that connects to the throat center, and they have no definition in their sacral, unlike the generator. So how does a manifestor make correct decisions? So let's talk about strategy first. Their strategy is to inform. And this does not come natural to the manifestor. They prefer not to communicate what they're doing sometimes. But it's important to reduce resistance. So if they're going to do something, it is very wise of them to let people know. And this serves two purposes. Either that person can be of assistance and help them with what they're doing, or they can simply not resist them. They can kind of move out of the way and allow the manifestor to have free reign with what they're doing. That is the strategy, to inform. Their authorities can be ego or heart center, which is, when they speak, they can hear what's true for them in their voice. So it's often a good idea for a manifestor that has that particular authority, which is kind of rare, to have someone that will simply hold space for them so they can talk and know what's correct for them. And then splenic, which is very much about intuition. It's just kind of an inner knowing. The mind likes to kind of drown out this authority a little bit. They can, it's important that they really feel into their bodies, and it's immediate. They will know what's correct immediately. Now, if they get to thinking about it, they may make an error just because the mind has gotten involved. But if they will go back to that first instinct they had, it's usually correct. They can also have SOAP, which when we get into the strategy and authority, you'll understand why that happens. So aligned, very good at managing and directing, insightful, intuitive, magnetic, and attractive. They can focus energy to accomplish great things. Unaligned, they feel like they're being judged as lazy. They might burn out. They are very sensitive, lacking a little bit of self-awareness, and can struggle with bitterness. A few well-known manifestors would be Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela, and Elizabeth Taylor. Looking at the projector's chart, if you're a projector, looking at your chart, there is no motor connected to the throat center. The sacral's undefined. Generally, these people have a very a lot of openness in their body graph, meaning they have very little definition. Definition refers to what is colored in, and sometimes with the projector, there's not a whole lot colored in, so they're really sensitive. They're receiving from everything outside of them. Their strategy is to wait for the invitation. And this can be difficult because they have all this great insight that they want to share, and they have to wait to share it when invited. So that is the strategy. Their authorities can be, there's quite a few authorities with projector. The splenic, as I spoke about before, with the manifestor, they can have this intuitive hit. It's immediate or emotional. They can have that emotional wave where clarity only comes after they're kind of neutral in terms of their emotion. They can also have ego or heart-centered, similar to the manifestor, where they need to kind of know what's correct for them by speaking about it. Same thing with self-projected or mental projected. There is authority in the voice. And I won't go too much into that, but that kind of gives you a general overview of the strategies, which is wait for the invitation, and the multitude of different possible authorities for the projector type. Next up is the manifesting generator, and they're kind of a hybrid between the manifestor and the generator, and they comprise about 32% of the population. A lot of people that come to me are manifesting generators. I'm not sure if they're growing in terms of our population or if I just kind of attract them to me, but they have, they're 32% of the population. They have an open and enveloping aura that's not quite as personal as the generator. Their strengths are that they're very energetic. They can do many things at once. These are your multitaskers. If you know someone that can kind of, it looks chaotic to us, but they can do a gazillion things at the same time, you're probably, it's probably a manifesting generator. They're very good at finding shortcuts. You know, they're innovators. They can look at something and say, oh, well, it can be done this way, faster. And they're kind of all about speed. They can be very self-aware, and they have that sustainable energy just like the generator. When they're unaligned, they can struggle with both anger and frustration, which are the two themes of the manifestor and the generator. They can skip important steps. They can try to force things. They can get frustrated with waiting, and they don't always finish what they start. So that's kind of an unaligned manifesting generator. So again, just to recap, strengths are energetic, can do many things at once, good at finding shortcuts, self-aware, sustainable energy, and unaligned emotional themes of anger and frustration, skipping important steps, and trying to force or make things happen. Hates waiting and does not always finish what they start. A few famous or well-known manifesting generators are Stephen King, the author, David Bowie, and Mother Teresa. If you're a manifesting generator and you're looking at your body graph, you have a defined throat center, and it's connected to a motor. Won't go over motors right now, but it's connected to a motor, and your sacral center must be defined. So how does a manifesting generator make correct decisions? They use their strategy and authority just like the other types. Their strategy is to respond, to wait, to respond, and inform. So there's a waiting component. Everything's being drawn to them if they will be patient and wait for it. And then when that thing comes that they've been waiting for, they can go ahead and respond to it and let people know what's going on with them. The communication part of this is important because they move fast, and sometimes that can be seen kind of, it can confuse people or overwhelm them. So if you're a manifesting generator, wait to respond to what comes to you. Things are coming to you, so trust that, and inform those that might be impacted by your response, your choice, about what you're going to do. The manifesting generator, just like the generator, can have two authorities, sacral, so it's that sacral sound that when asked yes or no questions, not open-ended questions, responds with uh-huh, or the solar plexus, which is emotional, riding out that emotional wave, those ups and downs until the seas are calm, everything's neutral, and then they have clarity. So lots of waiting with the manifesting generator, which can be challenging because, again, these folks move very fast. So last but not least, certainly not least, is the reflector. And they are the rarest of all the human design types. They comprise 1% of the population. Their strengths are that they're very talkative and passionate. They're very unique people. They are proponents for peace and prosperity, and they're a little bit like the canary in the coal mine. They reflect the health of their community. If the community is not doing well, the one that they're involved in, they are probably not doing well. So environment and who they're around is extremely important because they have absolutely no definition in their chart. If you're a reflector and you're looking at your chart, just going to see all white, feeling like maybe they're clinging to that are reflectors. Again, very rare individuals. Can be very, very talented people. They just really need to be in the correct environment and around the correct people. The reflector strategy is to wait a full lunar cycle. These people need a lot of time to know what's correct for them, and they just need to take that in almost an entire month to kind of figure that out. So, with reflector children, it's really important not to push them because they can become enormous people pleasers, and it's just not good. So they really require a lot of time, so they need a lot of patience to have clarity about what's correct for them. And they don't have an inner authority. They're just really tied in to the lunar cycle or the moon. So I'm not going to get into this too deeply, but the next level of human design would be profiles. And these are archetypal characters that we tend to play out in our incarnation here. And there are 12. There is what is called the investigator, martyr, which is an experimenter, the investigator opportunist, hermit opportunist, hermit heretic, experiential or martyr heretic, martyr role model, opportunist investigator, opportunist role model, the heretic investigator, the heretic hermit, the role model hermit, and the role model martyr. That's just to give you a quick taste of the next level of human design, which we won't be exploring a lot today. But as you can see, there's a lot of layers here. It can seem complex, but human beings are pretty complex. There's a lot of, things about us that are unique to us. And again, human design is the science of human differentiation. It is about not individualism, but individuation, which is clarity on who we are and how we best fit in the world and what we're here to do and to contribute. It's all about knowing yourself. So I do personal readings, and I also do classes at the House of Light. So if you're interested in human design, it is important, I think, to get a basic reading just to kind of have a good foundation on which to build when you're working out your strategy and authority, when you're experimenting with this system. And you can check out my website if you'd like to know more about me. That's humandesignsimplified.weebly. That's WEEBLY.com. You can email me at aloe, like the plant, -ha, HA24 @proton.me. Or you can text or call 404-808-6960. And just like to wish you the best. And again, just get in touch if human design is something that is of an interest to you. You want to know yourself better. You want to make better decisions. You want to be more aligned and have more peace and satisfaction and happy surprises in your life. Reach out. I'm happy to help you. And I'm also at the House of Light every other Friday, so you can be in touch with them as well, and come on in and see me, and I can give you what we call a mini reading, a very short reading, which is, it kind of gives you a very good overview. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and just reach out if I can be of assistance. Namaste.
You've been listening to the House of Light presents the Wisdom Cafe on 99.1 FM WQEE. The House of Light, a wellness center at 29 Jackson Street here in Newman, is a place for people to relax and find true healing. For additional information, 407-414-6711. Remember to tune in next week for another healing message from the House of Light presents the Wisdom Cafe right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.